Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffin. Welcome to our 105th installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Chayei Sarah, where Sarah dies. Avram finds a burial place for her, and there is a tremendous discussion about the burial place, and Avram basically pays through the nose in order to find the burial place. Also, the parsha speaks about finding a wife for Yitzchak, and that is what we're going to speak about today. It says in chapter 24, it says, "Now Abraham was old, well in years, and Hashem had blessed Abraham with everything. And Abraham said to his servant, the elder of his household, who controlled all that was his," meaning Eliezer, says, "Place now your hand under my thigh, and swear by Hashem, God of heaven, God of earth, that you not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell, rather go to my land and to my family. Shall you go take a wife for my son, for Isaac?" And then Eliezer says, maybe this woman's not going to want to go. How do I know she's going to want to go? So Abraham answers in verse 6, chapter 24, verse 6, "Beware not to return to my son, from there," meaning that you have to take the right woman. "And Hashem, God of heaven, who took me from the house of my father, from the land of my birth, spoke concerning me, who swore to me, saying, the offspring I'll give you this land, I will send his angel before you, and you will take a wife from my son from there. If she doesn't want to follow you, you shall be absolved of this oath of mine. However, do not return my son to there." So he gets a blessing. Avram gives him a blessing and says that, don't worry, don't worry, you're going to be taken care of. God's going to send an angel, you'll be okay. Now, you take it a little bit further, what is he looking for? What's he looking for in a woman? For Yitzchak. So he says in verse 12, he said, "Hashem, God of my master, Abraham, may you so arrange for me in this day that you do kindness with my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing here by the spring of water, and the daughters of townsmen come out to draw water. Let it be that the maiden to whom I shall say, please tip over your jug so I may drink, and who replies, drink, and I will even water your camels, her will you have designated for your servant, for Yitzchak. I may know through her you have done kindness with my master." So what is he looking for? He's looking for someone who's going to do chesed, right? Someone comes out to draw water, right? If she says that I want to give you to drink, and also I'll water your camels, she's the one. So that's the sign. So we spoke before. You can go look at my YouTube video at Rabbi Chaim Kaufman on relying on omens. Right? Seemingly he's relying on an omen. It says if this happens, then this is a woman. Right? So that is, there is an issue with that, but I already spoke about that. So you can take a look at my video over there. So what I want to speak about, what he's looking for in a woman. What is the criteria? So it seems clear that the criteria for Abraham is that he cannot marry any woman, meaning Yitzchak is not going to marry any woman, from the Canaanites, right? Not for anyone, from there, because they don't come from good stock, let's just say, etc. Don't have good character traits. He says, pick someone from my family. Now, you have to understand, Avram's family, they're all idolaters also. But, he felt that his family was better, than the Canaanites or others. So, Avram just says, pick for my son a daughter from, a woman from my family. And then Eliezer says, well, she's not going to go with me, so fine. Avram says, if she doesn't want to go with you, then you are absolved. Right? You are totally absolved. So what does Eliezer do? He says a prayer. And in Eliezer's prayer, he says that, the woman who's going to water, give me water to drink and give my camels, she's the one. Now you have to understand that, that Eliezer brings all these camels. And when he brings all these camels, there's a tremendous amount of water. This woman, whoever it's going to be, if she's going to offer water to the camels, she's going to have to, fill up a lot. Camels drink quite a bit. It's going to be a pretty big task. So what happens is Rivka comes out, and she says the magic formula. Not only give you to drink, but I'll give to you camels as well. And I have to understand Rivka's 3 at this point, even though back then women could get married at the age of 6. They were more well endowed at the age of 6. It sounds kind of gross, but that is definitely the case, that they could give birth at like 7 or 8. So, so things have obviously changed, certainly over the years. Nonetheless, even if she's well endowed at 3 and she's got like the body of a teenager, let's just say, and she's physically fit, and she says, I'm going to give to you and your camels. Well, that's quite a bit of work. Giving to, to all these camels, even though the Medrash says that her, when she did it, and she went to the well, so she didn't have to keep like going into the well and pulling the water up. The water came up, right? So it was pretty miraculous how it's done. But even for such a young girl, it's a pretty big miracle, right? It's a pretty big miracle. So in any case, she ends up being the one. So one thing, and that's probably gonna take up the whole time here, is that when we think about marriage. I've spoken about this in different contexts and different things. I always think though that good things are always good to be repeated. You don't get bored of hearing this. Hopefully, hopefully not. But what is someone looking for in a spouse? So here, Avram doesn't say anything. Right? We don't know anything from him. He just says, "Don't take a woman from." This group of people, right? Just, take from my family. Eliezer has an idea, Yitzhak very well, and that's why Avram sends him. And now normally finding a spouse for a child, you don't normally send someone else to do it. You would normally do it yourself. Avram was already old. Didn't think he could make the trip, so he sent Eliezer, and Eliezer seems to know Yitzhak very well, so he knows what he's looking for. What's he looking for in a woman? So he'll say he's looking for a slave. Look, he wants this woman to be able to give water to me and to my camels. So he's not looking for a slave. He's looking for somebody that is steeped in chesed, right? That is steeped in acts of loving kindness and always wants to help out others. And that's how Yitzhak grew up. He grew up in the house of Avram and Sarah, where, they had guests all the time. They learned how to serve others, and give to others. So that's what he's looking for in a wife. Someone who's gonna have the character trait of chesed, of to do, these acts of loving kindness. So when a person looks for a spouse, the Torah says that when a person gets married, when a man gets married, he's looking for an ezer kenegdo, right? An ezer means someone who helps, someone who's like a helpmate, and kenegdo, means opposite him. Now, it could mean as well somebody that is not the same, right? So, a lot of times the two people are the same. Let's say you have two people that are extremely extroverted, and they like to talk. Well, that's not necessarily going to be such a good match, because who's going to give in and let the other person talk? Usually one person talks more and the other person, talks less. Both talk a lot. It's not going to be very good. So they have to complement. They have to complement each other. But, when it comes to the Jewish way of dating, so you want to find somebody that you think in the same, the same way. That's why in the Orthodox world, even though divorce is on the rise, it's still nowhere near the divorce rate in the secular world. Secular world is over 50%, probably even higher than that. Where in the Orthodox community, it's less than 10% for sure. Probably 5%, maybe it's climbing. But it's still not compared to, 50%, because you have to keep in mind that how a person grows up, people grow up as Orthodox Jews, let's just make it easy. They're going to find someone who is, is going to be compatible with what they're looking for. Now, obviously, they're looking for someone, a person's going to be looking for someone who keeps Torah, keeps mitzvahs, right? That's pretty obvious. The question is what their philosophical outlook is. Are they Are they Lithuanian, more yeshivish? Are they looking for someone Hasidic, or they come from a Hasidic community? They could be someone who doesn't come from a Hasidic community looking for that, right? But, at the end of the day, there are a lot of things they have in common, right? You have to have similar outlooks, right? If you don't have similar outlooks, that's certainly going to be a recipe for disaster, right? Someone's more religious, the other person's less religious, or there's a conflict there. That's definitely going to be a recipe for disaster. So you have to have similar goals. Doesn't mean you have to be the exact same person, right? That's for sure not. But you have to have similar goals. You have to have, similar drives. One can be extroverted, one can be introverted. That's not a contradiction either. But at the same time, there's another important factor. All right, there's another important factor, and that's more than compatibility. Right, you have to see, if you can talk to them, you can speak to them, but there has to be a physical attraction, right? The Talmud says clear that a Jew wants to marry, wants to marry another Jew, they have to meet them, right? They absolutely have to meet them, because if they don't meet, then you can't marry someone without seeing them, because you may be disgusted by them, etc. But a person cannot only get married to someone based on looks. Because, over time, the looks are going to fade. Person's going to get old. So, they're not going to look the same. Especially, a woman has a few kids, the body's not the same. Right? It takes longer time to lose the weight. And now they're more harried by having little kids. I mean, it's hard. Right? It's definitely hard. But it is important. It is important that there is an attraction. Right? As Rav Noach Weinberg, Zecher Tzadik L'Rocha, the founder of Torah, would say there's a difference between love and infatuation. Right? Love is something that's real. Right? Love is something that's deep lasting. Infatuation is exactly what it sounds like. It could be gone tomorrow. It could be gone the next day. Right? So love is something that, you have to work at. And some will say that love only comes 5 years after the marriage. Right? It takes time to work on, and to develop that. Someone will say, well, if that's true, then how can young people, a girl the age 19, 20, 21, and a boy the age of like 22, 23, how can they get married? Right? They don't know what love is. Right? They don't, have contact with the opposite sex that much. So how are they going to know what love is? Etc. So love can certainly develop, right? That there's no question. If there are common goals, you're attracted to the other person. And you see the other person sensitive and is attentive and, and all that, and you check them out and you've gone out a number of times, then if you have no reason not to get married, then, a person's going to get married because there's a lot in common, right? There's a tremendous amount in common. At the same time, you have to realize, right? A person's going to have to realize that, it's something that has to be worked on. And love really is going to develop later. Now, in the secular world, this sounds kind of strange, right? Because, you have to get used to somebody. A lot of people live together first. I mean, it's a good way to kill a marriage, right? How do you kill a great romance, right? Get married, right? So most people that live together, it's funny that I think it's like a 75% rate of divorce. If you live together for years before and then you get married, like, I would think just the opposite, but the reality is that once you have a piece of paper now, it's a lot more serious. You got to take things more serious. Here, you're living together, you can just walk out at any time. There's no obligation to stay, so to speak. But, love takes effort. It takes a lifetime of effort, and it has to be worked on. It's not something that necessarily comes overnight. There are many things, the many wrenches that can be thrown in the way, all kinds of different life situations that can definitely take a strain, on a marriage. The bottom line with a successful marriage, will be how much close interaction there is. I don't necessarily mean physical interaction. Talking about how people, how you talk to each other. Do you make time to speak to each other? Even, a person has a lot of kids and they're busy, whatever, person has to find time to speak to their spouse. Not just about what the kids are doing, just in general. Because I spoke once at the Shever Brochus at a festive meal after someone gets married, right? You have 7 days of festive meals for the bride and the groom. So I spoke once. Someone wanted me to speak, so I spoke, and one of the things, I mentioned all these people I was talking to were all, all FFBs. They're all from birth. They're all, religious from birth. So I said to them what sounded like, a little bit of a novelty. Maybe, they're just trying to humor me. Probably, probably a little bit of both. But what I said was that, a marriage is like a plant. A plant, if you don't water it, it dies, right? This is botany 101. You can all, try this at home. Take a plant and don't water it and see what happens. After a short amount of time, it's probably going to wilt, right? Why is it going to wilt no matter how much sun it gets? Because it doesn't have any water, right? So if you don't water it, it dies. So marriage the same way. No matter how long a person's been married for, if it's not worked on, if it's not nurtured, it can certainly die. And then, two people go in different directions. That's not, even if a person meets their soulmate, right? Even if they meet their soulmate, it doesn't necessarily mean 100% it's going to work out. They don't have to do any effort, right? You definitely have to put in efforts, no question. You have to work hard. Marriage is not an easy thing. It's definitely not an easy thing. But the more effort that you put in, even if a person makes mistakes and etc. It's something that obviously is worthwhile, that it should work, and but in today's generation, even in the Orthodox community, if there are issues and there are problems, people just get divorced, right? It's just easy. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to fix up, wait for them to fix themselves up, or I have to fix things up, or they think I have to fix things up, whatever it is. It's hard. It's hard work. So like anything else, that's hard. You got to put the effort in. If you don't want to put the effort in, that's it. Either you have to learn to live with it, right? Or what most people do is they'll move on, because for any number of reasons, that's just wrong. That's a terrible secular idea that has creeped into the Jewish community, and people don't want to work hard. And also, people have really messed up ideas what they think marriage is. They're going to say, well, a person gets married so young, how can they know what marriage is? Okay, so people have to get proper hadracha, they have to get proper guidance, all the way through, what to do, what not to do, how to do things, what to look out for, different, certainly different things. At the same time, just because a person's getting married young, right, doesn't mean, they're doomed to failure. Because you see that most marriages work, right? 95% of the marriages work because, again, you have a very strong base. The ideas, what you believe in, they're pretty much the same. Can they veer off? Sure. They certainly can veer off. Can a person marry someone they thought they were marrying and it could turn into be somebody else? Yeah, could also be. A person could have been fooled. There could have been warning signs they didn't look at. A person has to be very, very careful. Even though the dating process, you can go out a number of times unless you're in Hasidic circles, right? You go out a number of times. You can't cover every base, right? But hopefully the major things, right? And you don't want to get any hidden surprises, because some people will say, oh, I couldn't tell you that, while you were dating because it's Lashon Hara. Well, if it's something serious, obviously you have to ask, your local Orthodox rabbi what to do in such a situation. But if it's something serious, that needs to be addressed, the other side has to know, you have to ask a competent rabbinical authority what to do. I know of a story, it's a horrific story, that, someone married somebody, and the other side didn't tell them that this person was depressed. They had depression. They were on medication for depression. And the other side was never told. Oh, I couldn't tell them it's Lashon Hara. Well, at some point it should have been told, no question. That there was a prior condition. The question is when you tell it. Okay, so again, you have to ask your local Orthodox rabbi what to do in that situation. But not telling them, and then person wakes up the next day, or next week or whatever, finds out this person isn't exactly who they thought they were. They've been duped. Right? That, there's no mitzvah to do that, that's for sure. A tremendous transgression. A person should have known. Could have made his own decision what to do, but he should have known. How can a person not be told that? That's that's it's a horrible thing to do someone, and they'll say, "Oh no, we're so religious, we didn't want to say anything because it's lashon hara." This is something you're allowed to tell, because that is something quite important. So, in this whole thing, a person has to, as we mentioned, a person has to be attracted to the other side. But being attracted, that can't be everything. Because attraction only lasts for a certain amount of time. Throughout everything, there still has to be that, that connection, that attraction. One great rabbi, once told me, he said, he was telling somebody that the person that they were probably going to marry wasn't the right person to marry, and the final clincher was, imagine 6 o'clock in the morning, you're going to get up and you're going to look over and that's going to be your wife. Can you get up? Can you get up and look at your wife at 6, look at this person at 6 in the morning? Because the person, as I was told, never made eye contact, with this girl, and he was contemplating getting married, but he couldn't look at her. He was repulsed, actually. Eventually came out, he was repulsed, and didn't get, he didn't end up marrying this girl for good reason. But, this great rabbi said, you have to, there has to be that physical, connection. It can't be, well, I could live with this, whatever, but, there has to be that, there has to be an emotional connection, that's for sure also. And there has to be a physical connection, but it's not the only thing, right? That's not the only thing that should drive a person, because, if things go well and you end up getting married and you're going to be with this person forever, there may be other things that, are lacking in this person, even though they have good looks. So, good looks, nothing to sneeze at. Don't get me wrong. It is, it is an important criteria, for sure, but you can't just get focused, on looks, because, looks are going to go by the wayside over time. And once that happens, then you have to deal with this person the rest of your life. So if you don't have a relationship based on something more definitive, something stronger other than looks, then this will never last, because you'll end up looking elsewhere because the person doesn't now fit your criteria because X, Y, and Z. Put on a few extra pounds, they, after having a few kids and having trouble getting it off. And I mean, it's not, it's a different person, different ways. They look the same, but, it might not be that same attraction. So there has to be something more, to it than that. Otherwise, that's, it's never going to last. And if a person, I heard a great rabbi once say, if you marry for money, in other words, the other side has a lot of money, so if you marry for money, you only lose interest. So, the other side could be extremely attractive also, but, you have an ulterior motive, right? It's not based on, similar outlooks, world outlooks and all that. It's based on something else, then, yeah, that could, even if there is money, that's not necessarily going to keep someone together either. It may help in different ways, but it's not going to be the end all things that, is going to, keep a couple together. Another important thing is, as I mentioned earlier, and that is that you have to do things together, outside of your kids. Like, some people have, a date night once a week. They go out, let's say, or they just go for a walk. I know somebody every night walks with his wife for 20 minutes, half an hour. Just talking about, whatever, not just stuff that went on during the day, but, to have that, connection and to keep that connection strong. So, again, it's not, it's not an easy thing because there's a lot of stress. Everybody's got stress, some more, some less. So, the stronger the marriage, the easier it is while you're dealing with stress, you deal with it together. If the marriage isn't as strong, so it's harder, right? It's definitely harder, but it takes, it takes tremendous effort. And, another important point, which is hard for some people, and that is that a person, a person being with someone else has to be vulnerable. They have to let themselves be vulnerable. And that's not an easy thing either, because a person's vulnerable, and the other person knows their weak spots or whatever. So, that, a person can push those buttons at any time, and yeah, that could be a tremendous sore spot. But at the same time, the person doesn't let their guard down, and doesn't want to interact or have, such a great level of interaction. What's going to happen is, there's going to be no trust. There's going to be no bond. Not, it's not going to, it's just we're just related by the marriage contract. And it doesn't matter what else is going on. It's just there's no other, you don't have that other connection. You don't do things together. You don't speak enough. All these things just lead down one path, and that's path to disaster, right? So it has to be, it has to be worked on. That is, that's for sure. And if it's not, it's just going to end up, it's going to end up in a bad way. So, a person wants to look at, certainly at character traits, right? How they act, what type of person, how they grew up, what type of family, etc. So all these other things that are going on that, in the dating process itself, a person has to keep an open mind. Now, you try and cover all your bases. Try and cover the most important things. So I would say if a person meets the most important things, then there is attraction. There's no reason not to get married. Unless, there's something else there that, is stopping that. So, again, I'm not saying it's 1, 2, 3 process here. A person can meet, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times, whatever. The goal is to try and get as much information, as possible, and see a person in different situations, see how they react, what they do, in certain things, and then obviously, a person's going to have to make a decision whether they see themselves, forever with this person or not. And they don't see themselves with this person, or they can't see, or they can't commit for whatever reason. So either they have to get help with that, or, they should break it off and they should, move on and, try and find someone else. People have these lists. It's kind of, it's a kind of funny thing. People have lists like exactly what they're looking for. 10 points, 8 points, whatever. And the list is weighted. Like, this is the most important thing. This is, less important. So, a person's gonna have their checklist. Okay, did this, check. If it's this criteria, check. You gotta see, if the criteria that's not met, that is important. So you have to see if it's possible that it will be met or it won't be met, and how important it is. So, I can't overstress that, if something's important, let's say it's the top 5 list, and it's really important, and this, and the other person doesn't have it, so then you have to say, is it really that important to me? Can I get over it or not? If a person's like insensitive, I just heard a story recently. Someone was dating someone, and they dated a number of times, and they went out, and one night they went out, it was like, I don't know, 3 hours, 4 hours, something like that. They and this woman was like really hungry. She said, can we just stop somewhere to, I get something to eat, get something to drink, like something. He's like, oh, we'll be home in like 10 minutes. So, the guy didn't want to stop, and that was it. She broke it off after that because, this guy showed totally insensitivity. She was hungry, thirsty, something. He just sort of blew her off, and he said, no, we'll be there in 10 minutes. You don't have to, we don't have to stop anywhere, get a drink or whatever. You'll survive, till we get there. Well, I didn't exactly say that language, but, that's what was conveyed, and, showed very little sensitivity. So that's an important thing. If someone is insensitive like that, you don't necessarily learn sensitivity, right? Something that a person should, have, and person should feel, for the other person. But this person blew it, and this woman definitely picked it up, and she was rip roaring angry, and she had every right to be, because there's no reason why she shouldn't have stopped. There's absolutely no reason that she shouldn't have stopped. That this guy shouldn't have stopped. And so, something like that, when that comes out, yeah, that's that's an important thing. You see, a person's insensitive, you can say, well, just chalk it up to this, chalk it up to that. That's a deal breaker, right? That's a deal breaker right there. So, a person has to be open-minded also. A person can't think, I'm only looking for this and only this. But it has to be a little bit open-minded, also. Doesn't mean you have to give up on what you believe in, by any stretch. But, again, a person's weighting a list and how important things are. If you have a top priority and this person, like, this is your most important thing, and the other person doesn't have it, that's it. If that's your most important thing, it's something you can't get over. The thing today about looks and how important looks are. Men to women for sure. How a woman looks, but you also have from women to men. And if a guy is a little bit overweight, some women will say, I'm not interested. I'm totally not interested. It's totally unattractive. It's a relatively new, phenomenon. It's something that's creeped in, unfortunately, to the religious community. But if someone's obese, I understand. They're obese. Someone doesn't want to be with someone obese. Okay, but if someone's a little bit overweight, and they say no, that's a total turnoff. That's a relatively new thing because, if someone's like, let's say 5-10 pounds overweight, I would say, again, this is me, but I would say, so what? They may end up putting on weight later on in life anyway because they don't have the same metabolism or whatever. But they're real people. If they're like 5-10 pounds overweight, they won't look at them. A woman won't look at a guy. I mean, it's because he's got a pouch, pouch belly, whatever. Again, if they're like 20-30 pounds overweight, question is how much it bothers them. And by some, that is a deal breaker. Because at the end of the day, you got to be attracted. If that's, and if that bothers the person, that's it. That's they have to be attracted. So, I'm not saying a woman has to go out with a fat guy. That's, that I'm not saying. You have to be attractive. You have to be attracted to the other person. At the same time, it could be a turnoff. It could be a totally turnoff either way, right? Men with women, same. That's normal. A guy wants a woman that's, that's thin. Doesn't want a woman that's overweight. So, probably most men. I'm a guy, so I'll say for myself and, for most men. I'm just saying the other way around is a little bit, is a little bit strange. It's a more recent, definitely a more recent, more recent phenomenon. But again, the purpose of, dating, there's no like social interaction between men and women, in the Orthodox community, unless, family-wise, whatever. But, in general, they're separate. Because you have to go back and watch the movie When Harry Met Sally. Can never be friends with the opposite sex. It doesn't, it just doesn't work. So, once you start dating already, so that's a different thing, right? And that's why when a person dates for marriage, that is the whole point. You're dating for marriage. So the person has a lot of things more in common, usually, with the other person than, certainly in the secular world. Because in the secular world, just looking to hook up with somebody, will it lead to marriage? It won't. Most people probably not interested for a while, at least till their mid-20s, at least that. So, that's a recipe for disaster. And there's good reason why the divorce rate in the secular world is so high. So here in the religious world, the base, the marriage base is much stronger. Is much stronger. And therefore, once someone, hits a certain age, usually, and they're ready to get married, so, a person good at a certain age, still not ready to get married, but, if they're ready to get married, so it should be easier in a certain way because you're looking for people of the same mind, same mindset, how they grew up in different ways. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, right? But you have a lot more in common. So when a person has a lot more in common, then in theory the marriage should last. The marriage should stick. Doesn't mean other things can happen. For sure not. But you're putting your best foot forward for to have the most success. So in this case, what does Eliezer do? He's looking for somebody that is strong in chesed. Like Yitzhak's mother, like Sarah. So that is why, he says his prayer before Rivka comes out. Because that, he's stressing to himself, that's exactly, the type of woman that he is, he's looking for. And, it's going to have a similar mindset. So you see, when Rivka meets Yitzchak and Yitzchak takes her into Sarah's tent, that there were a number of things that returned to Sarah's tent even after she died, and that was just a sign that shows that she was the right one. But again, he's looking for someone that's similar to the house that Yitzchak grew up in. So there'll be much more, much more compatible. You look at people who are married, you see there are definitely similarities in different ways. They're not total polar opposites. Obviously, polar opposites never going to get married. So there has to be common ground, common ideas, different things. You don't have to be exactly the same. That doesn't matter. The point is that you're going in the same direction. You have the same ideals. So I think because of that, because of many things we mentioned, that's the reason why there's very little, divorce rate is so low in the Orthodox community, even though it is rising. Some people say, oh, but a woman can never get divorced. No such thing as divorce. By the Orthodox, that's why it's so low, and that's not true. I mean, there are plenty of people who get divorced. Torah even speaks about divorce, so if it was such a taboo thing and nobody did it, Torah wouldn't mention it. Right? So you do see that there is divorce. Talmud says that when a person gets divorced, even the altar sheds tears. Right? Like God himself shedding tears. Right? We don't want to see people get divorced. Right? But it exists. And therefore, if it exists, so it has to be done a certain way. That's for sure. But it's not because divorce doesn't exist, and it's not because divorce is taboo that people don't get divorced. There are plenty of people who get divorced. I mean, it's horrific what's going on. That divorce rate is rising. That there's there are horror stories out there. That's true. That's true. But the system is the way it is. And it works for the most part. It works. Let's say 95% of the time. That's pretty good. That's definitely pretty good. So therefore, you know what they say, if it's not broken, I don't have to fix it. There are things I think that need to be worked on. I definitely think that. I think, some people's outlooks have to be, their outlooks have to be a little bit different, as well today. But nonetheless, even that being said, the goals are the same. The ideas are the same. You're coming from similar backgrounds. So, if it doesn't work out or there are difficulties, you have to try to the best of your ability, to work it out. And if need be, a person may have to go to therapy in order to do it because, that's the only way out of it. That's the only way, possibly can be saved. And that's, also in vogue today. Plenty of people go to therapy today, for any number of reasons. So, if you can't do it yourself, you can't work it out yourself, you should go to someone. But, a marriage is not, it's not a 5-year option to renew. People make the mistake and say, well, it's too difficult, it's this, it's that. They don't want to work on it. In the case where you have to get divorced, where there is no other way, fine. Then that's what has to be done. But there are many marriages that could be saved. It may take a good effort. It may take a monumental effort, I agree. But, even if it does, you'd have to ask yourself, well, isn't it worth it? Because the main people that lose out when you get divorced, if you have to get divorced, are the kids. And most spouses put one kid against the other, kids against, the other spouse, and it's just a disaster. It's about money, and it's about this. It's, the only people that win are the lawyers, right? They're the only ones that, that win. Most divorces are horrific, destroy the kids, and, it's not what's supposed to be, right? But, there's a lot of vindictiveness, there's a lot of anger. I mean, a lot of other things going on. I get it, but, it's if it can't be fixed, it can't be fixed, right? Someone's got mental illness or whatever, and it can't, different things can happen, that's it. So if a person has to get divorced, they get divorced. No one has to be, I'm not saying anybody by any stretch has to be in a abusive relationship. That's for sure not either. So, you have to, if there are issues and issues come up, you have to have someone, to be able to speak to get guidance from, someone who knows what they're doing, and has experience, for that, so that the marriage, can be helped. And, again, there are very good people out there that can certainly help. And, there are marriages that can be saved. Problem is, we live in a throwaway generation, and, we just don't want to work. And that's, it's unfortunate because, there are marriages that could have been saved. And in the end, they're not. So, marriage is definitely a tricky thing. It's definitely a tricky thing. And, when a person does get married, there are two halves of souls coming together. So that's a huge thing. And God puts them together. Now, even if they're put together and they meet the right person, no guarantee it's going to last. Right? It could be the right person, but you messed it up. So, that can happen. That unfortunately, can happen. But, the person, you see that person who they're married to, right? We're saying hopefully that it works out. That, there's a reason you got married. There's a reason why, a person got put together. It could be for the wrong reason, right? But it certainly could be for the right reason. And, even if it's for the right reason, it's no, it's no guarantee. It's just going to work. You have to, you have to make the effort. That is, I'll repeat it once, twice, a lot of times. And, some people may not want to hear it, but it doesn't matter. It's, it's something that needs to be heard. And that is that marriage is something that has to be worked on. Right. And, there are plenty of good, marriage books out there, to read, Torah perspective on marriage, all these different things. But, remember the analogy of the flower. You don't water it, it dies. So I want to mention also, I came up with an idea for a new class. It's not going to be live, but it's going to be based on spiritual growth and development, and working on character development. So I'm giving a choice of three different books to go through. One of them is Path of the Just by the Ramchal, by Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, great book in Musar and ethics. Duties of the Heart by the Rabbeinu Bachai, called Chovos Levovos. Also, very important book. Or Orchos Tzadikim, The Way of the Righteous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through one of these books, see what people want, what people are interested in, and the cost is going to be $25 a month, and I'll send that MP3 out on a weekly basis. I also give conversion classes, Noahide classes. Take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, or Beyond Noahide. I also give an Intro to Kabbalah class. That meets every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock New York time. We're finishing up the book The Way of God by the Ramchal, by Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. We're spoken about euthanasia, spiritual forces, why God created the world, the purpose of man, purpose of the nations. So now we're going through the end of the book about fundamental essays. We spoke about Torah mitzvahs. We spoke about spirituality. We're now going to we spoke about reward and punishment last week. Now we're going to speak about Gan Eden, Garden of Eden, and hell. Probably go further other topics there as well. That's every Tuesday night. Tuesday night, 9 o'clock. I also give 2 question and answer sessions. That's Tuesday, 10 o'clock in the morning, New York time, or Thursday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyone wants to contact me, feel free. Contact me at rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RABBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. And wishing everyone a great Shabbos.